Our second race of the day for the MX5 Racing Championship is about to get underway here at Silverstone. David Addison and Charlie Butler-Henderson trackside. And this is a 20-minute race. The first won by Paul Rodison. He is the man on pole position with Jonathan Halliwell with him at the front of the grid. The onboard camera carried by Nick Dunn. He starts 8th on the grid. By rights, he'd have started 4th, except he had a spin at the last corner of the first race.
And I did go and see him actually after the first race, and I said, sorry, I had to mention about his spin when I saw it, and he was very embarrassed. He was very embarrassed, and he said, yes, I'm not happy with myself, but he's a great character, and this is actually his last race in that car. It's been sold, he's got a new one ready to go, and he's brought it back specially because he crashed just where that marshal is on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side of the pit wall. He crashed it into the wall there a couple of years ago, and it's his first time back out in the car, and he's brought it back for nostalgia memory reasons, so hopefully he'll have a nice clean race.
Now in the first race there was drama from the word go. William Bowles had a go to get past Ian Loversage up at Luffield, and they made contact, and Ian Loversage was tapped into a spin and was clobbered by Andrew Pretorius. Both of them suffered damage and retired to the pits, trying to peer to the back of the grid to see whether or not either or both are there. I think Andrew Pretorius is, but I'm not convinced that Ian Loversage's car is there unless he's been able to get a spare. So I think we are going to be a couple of cars short as we are set to go racing. 20 minutes in prospect. Now, Charlie, talk to me about weather. Talk to me about what Silverstone is like in these conditions, because the rain hasn't been constant. We've had heavy rain, it's eased a little bit, but really the track has hardly been dry all day. No, hardly been dry all day. Being an old airfield, as most race circuits started from, it's very, very windy, and Silverstone is very famous for being very flat. So these cars aren't the biggest, they're not an Arctic lorry, but at the same time, when the wind hits the side of that number 55 panel of our pole starting car and our race winner from earlier on in the day, before we went live on motors, it's still going to affect the car, definitely, yeah. So you'd think with a strong wind that it's going to dry the circuit, but that wind is covered in moisture. It's just constantly dumping more water on the circuit. We've got water on the inside of the windscreen of this car. We've got his lap timer on the right hand side that we can see there, and the very famous Gulf colours that he bought it with those colours and wanted to keep it the same because he liked them. So yeah, fair play to him. A great colour scheme. I love it personally. And the BRDC clubhouse looms over the grid. That shows you how windy it is here, as the Union flag doesn't just flutter, all the flags down the pit lane as well. Actually the flagpole's almost bending. It is a pretty bleak day here at Silverstone. However, the racing we've had so far has been very good. There's lots more to come from Mazdas, more classic touring cars, more Formula Fords, the Clubman's Register, and also Brick Car at the end of the day. So the Mazda grid is formed and ready to go. And in a few moments, as soon as cars are dragged out of gravel beds, we should be good for the green flag lap. And remember, these guys, unless they've had their finger on the pulse and they've been watching our footage, and a rumour has been spread around the paddock here at Silverstone, some of them might not be aware of that oil until now, when they go out to do their warm-up outing lap, where they're going to be weaving left and right, getting as much heat into those tyres as possible, and not going to be aware of some of that oil that's positioned around the circuit. And the marshals, God love them, there's nothing they can really do about it. With the wet conditions, that oil is just literally going to have to disperse itself off the racing line as it slowly gets pushed and thrown out by the cars going around the track. So it's going to be quite exciting, and all to be had as they come down into Brooklands, which is in theory the 4th corner from where they are now. So they've got Copse, then Maggots and Beckett's, and then down into Brooklands, and then through the long right of Luffield up towards Woodcote. The first race was quirky in a sense, because although it's a one-make category and therefore you expect the cars to run at roughly the same pace, and I know we've got two classes, the 1800cc Mark 3s, 1600cc Mark 1s, gaps opened up quite quickly, as though some drivers were able to adapt to the tricky conditions easier than others. Yes, yeah, that's very, very true to say that. And we're looking at our poleman here and race winner as well. You can see that he's moving his head to the left, so he's actually having to move his head to the left to see the lights and the marshal at the top there that's waving the green flag that we can see above us now. And so not quite a comfortable head position for him as well. And the racing line is a slipperier line, believe it or not, in these conditions than it is offline. So will we see P2 now? So the P2 on the inside nearest the pit will get a better start. It is a constant debate as to why pole position for a side-by-side standing start grid is on the outside. A staggered grid, it's not so much of a handicap being on pole position, but on a 2x2 grid like this, having pole position is a disadvantage because you're on the outside line for the first corner. But the MSA, the governing body, say no, that is how it should be, that's how the track licence is, and so drivers have to go with it. You're riding now with Nick Dunn, heading up towards Beckett's, and it is certainly a very wet circuit indeed that they have to cope with, so they're going to have to be oh so careful. Now, they have raced once today, but it's wetter for this second race compared to what they had earlier on in the day.
Yes, yeah, wetter, not so oily, not so greasy. Well, I say oily, but there is oil on the circuit, which they're going to see now, and yeah, it'd be interesting to see actually. They're on the they've got a soft compound or a hard grooved slab, softer compound as well. And look at the spray. This is the spray even at they're only doing 30, 45 miles an hour. That's all they're doing, and that is the spray. Imagine being in a motorway situation. That's the spray you see now. At race pace, when they're doing 100, 120 miles an hour down the back straight, that spray is emphasised and exaggerated even more. Very, very difficult to see.
Now, Paul Rodison is one of the masters of Mazda MX5 racing.
Oh, big sideways.
Yeah, he did. That's only the warming up lap, but he's trying to get some warmth in the rubber and also work out where the puddles are.
They're all at it.
They are indeed. Jonathan Halliburton in the red, white and blue car. The nearest opposition out of race one, Simon Fleet in the blue and pink car. Pole in qualifying, but struggled in race one. But as I say, these are much worse conditions now. The cars making their way onto the grid. You can see the older shape, the Mark 1 shape. 88 Chris Webster was the class winner first time around from Chris Bexham. And if you think it was windy, well, there's the proof. The poor Marshal only just able to stand upright.
All the marquees and the awnings that the pits that the teams are using have got concrete blocks. Maybe we need to put them on his feet.
Now seems like a good time to remind you that he's volunteered to do this. All the marshals are volunteers, they're not paid, and without them we could not have race meetings. So thank you to all of them, particularly on a day like this. Round two of the Max 5 Racing Championship is about to get underway here at Silverstone, part of this Motors TV live race day. Paul Rodison is on pole position. Nick Dunn is the man with the onboard camera. 20 minutes are ahead of us. We are about to go racing. In a moment, the gantry will go red when the lights go out. We are in business, and then who can make the best start on the run down towards Copse Corner? 5-second board is displayed, and in a moment the lights will go red. They do so now. Engine notes rise. Lights out. We're racing. Paul Rodison from pole position gets away. Jonathan Halliwell has the inside line on the run down towards Copse. Is he going to be able to make a move and grab the race lead? I don't think he is. Paul Rodison has the advantage. Andy Bailey turns through third. Look at the yellow car. Jeremy Shipley's green car on the inside was away well, but loses out and around Copse, and Nick Dunn has made a slow start. He's fallen behind some of the Mark 1s.
Yeah, really interesting to see some of the spray. So he's going over to the right-hand side, which actually is a good place to be because he can outbrake these two on the left, which is exactly what he's going to go and do. And he's outside of the spray as well. He just needs to keep it clean, not get the rear wheels locked up. We've got a few going sideways as they tail on the brakes and snake around, gathering for grip. But yeah, great stuff from our onboard footage there, and a great move. 2 in 1.
Down Wellington Straight come the race leaders. Now you get an idea as well as to how much water there is. With such a busy grid, you can see the spray hanging in the air, and Jonathan Halliwell pulls out partly to see where he's going, partly to see if there's any grip, and partly to see whether he can find a way through. George Grant there to the inside of Jeremy Shipley, heading down towards the braking zone for Luffield. George Grant goes through, son of former Formula 3 racer, London cabbie Ronnie Grant, and he gains place on the inside. The leaders then head up towards Luffield, and off the road goes Andy Bailey. He was on the outside line, but he's just run out of space.
Keep it going, keep it going.
Can he dig his way back on track? He's got the momentum.
Just.
He's going to be way down the order, but he's back on track.
Back on track, yeah, and that's going to be interesting to see that car claw its way up. So you can imagine, obviously not that you travel this closely with on a motorway, but you can see here how close we are, doing probably coming up to about 90 miles an hour, just approaching about 110, 105 or so, coming into Copse Corner as we turn in fast through there on the exit, not running wide on the exit. Number 21 of Fleet there, going a little bit wide, back on board again.
It's also getting ominously grey, or even greyer, overhead heading up towards Beckett's. I fear it might get even wetter. But Nick Dunn is now sitting in the spray, generated by Jim Hart, the Paul Sheard run car. They go up towards Beckett's now. Of course, when it's this wet, you've got to be really brave to do any overtaking, because you have to go offline to do it, unless somebody makes a mistake and leaves the door open, and that's a gift for Nick Dunn.
Absolute perfect gift there. We were lucky that they didn't come to blows again, as as the Hart car was basically getting back onto the circuit again and getting a bit of sideways, so they very nearly made contact. But what a perfect move, and what a brilliant onboard bit of footage there we've got here from this greasy Silverstone Motors TV race.
George Grant again goes around the outside, the magazine publishing company owner. Runs around the outside of Jeremy Shipley, working his way now onto the back of Simon Fleet. Paul Rodison is his who leads the way, 8/10 up at the end of one lap from Jonathan Halliwell. Let's see whether the gap goes up or comes down. The first race earlier on in the day had a rather elasticated lead gap, which was in part down to yellow flag zones around the circuit. Rodison leads, the gap is 0.900 of a second. Look at this, 3, almost 4 wide coming out of Luffield, and the yellow car is the one to watch. Andy Bailey, having got himself back on track, trying to work his way through past the 1.6 litre Mark 1s, and that class was being led by Richard Smith, but it's now, as they come over the line, being led by Nick Bailey from Chris Webster, and Smith down to third.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There you've got Bailey there. Is it Bailey in the yellow car? I think it is.
Andy Bailey, yeah.
Andy Bailey, yeah, making his way back up again, clawing his way back up slowly as he goes. But what like a grey cloud, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. And ahead of him, that Mark 1 battle is for the class lead. Nick Bailey is just hanging on to it, but Chris Webster in the white and green car, who won earlier on in the day, is right there behind. Is there a gap on the inside? Yes, but he's not close enough to take advantage of it. And Richard Smith there, rather cheekily, tries to buy into it as well. This is the lead battle, and it's a proper scrap, isn't it now? Sideline, finds all the puddles. Can he find any grip there? He stays pretty close to Paul Rodison, so he's not lost out too much. Rodison in the very Mazda colours, the works colours if you like, was carried on the Le Mans winning car of 1991. There to the outside line of Nick Bailey goes Chris Webster, but that does not give him the class lead.
No, and you can see the oil there is now gone because of the downpour of rain we've just had, has actually sort of washed it offline.
Just ahead of them, look for number 3, you'll see him there. That's William Bowles, who is running now in 10th place, having started 21st on the grid, and he's under attack from a really sideways Nick Bailey, who is trying to also prevent Chris Webster from coming past him. Round the outside of all of them goes Andy Bailey in the yellow car, but this is side by side for the class lead. Webster on the inside. On the outside line is Nick Bailey as they come over the timing line down towards Copse Corner. As they went over the line, Webster was ahead by 14 1/1000ths of a second. He's got the inside line for Copse Corner. He's got the class lead as well.
Oh, absolutely phenomenal stuff, absolutely brilliant. And you can see the spray, they're having to fight for grip. These are rear-wheel drive cars, they're very lightweight, but at the same time it doesn't mean they're going to have as much oversteer as the bigger beast that we saw earlier, like the Skyline that we saw in our race just before. But they still are going to have to really, get hold of these cars and have to handle them and guide them around the track without spinning them off into the scenery.
This is the lead battle. It's still Paul Rodison just ahead of Jonathan Halliwell, who again tries to find all that grip on the outside. Why does he go for the outside there? He wants to be on the inside for here, but he's not close enough, so he can't make that work. So he has to slot back in behind the race leader, Paul Rodison, as they come up towards the timing line. Halliwell last lap through was the quicker of the two. And again, he pulls out and has a look at Woodcote.
Yeah, these two, literally, you could put a blanket over them, couldn't you? They're so close. But they've got different strengths in different areas, really. So it's going to be nice to see Halliwell make a move and make a lunge, but he's showing his nose up on the inside there, but isn't quite close enough and doesn't really want to do it on the inside of Copse because he'll lose out so much more on the exit then on the numbers on the left-hand side of the pit wall there on the straight are bouncing around, so the pit crew have put the numbers out and they've blown off the actual pit board that they've put out to the message, so a little bit of debris on the inside of the pit wall.
Jonathan Halliwell makes his move for the race lead on the outside at Beckett. Is he going to be up alongside? Not quite.
He hung him out to dry there a little bit. He knew that he was on the outside and basically just stalled a bit of time, making sure that he had to go around the outside and maybe kiss the grass on the exit.
Meantime, Nick Dunn in 8th place. He's not actually made progress, surprisingly, despite all the dramas that have been going on in this race. But life is not easy, and so as he runs onto Wellington Straight, he's at the back of the pack as Halliwell now makes the move on the outside. This time he's much nearer to Paul Rodison. He's got to stay alongside to get the inside for Luffield. Can he do it? No, he can't. Rodison is sideways. Halliwell goes to the outside line. Everywhere he wants to be. there's a face full of Paul Roddison's orange and green Mazda, isn't there? Because Roddison is doing the job absolutely proper. There's nothing dirty about this. It's just good defensive driving in really tricky conditions.
And these guys have known each other for years. They're all friends. They all have a beer after the races and stuff. So they all have a really good MX5 sort of party atmosphere feel to their grids and races. But he's definitely going to make a move on that within the next couple of laps. There's still just over 12 minutes remaining in this race, so still plenty of time. As long as neither of them make a mistake and throw that battle that they're having at the moment away, we're definitely going to see the blue and white car of Halliwell in the lead at some point. I'll put money on it.
Right, okay, 12.5 minutes to go. Apologies for Jonathan Halliwell, whose race is now doomed by Charlie's prediction, but he's going to have a go on the outside. He's ahead briefly, but can he hang on in there? He goes right to the outside where all the grip is, and he's done it. Really good move round the outside. Jonathan Halliwell picks up the race lead, and he's worked hard for that, hasn't he? Lap after lap, he's been assessing where Roddison is strong. He's been looking for where there's traction, and he's strung it together. Can Roddison fight back?
Well, I don't want him to, because I'm going to lose 20 quid from you otherwise. I'm up at the moment. This is great stuff. But he keeps going round the outside. He's cooling his tyres down the straights. He's going around the outside line, which is the grippier line. Those of you that follow motorsport and watch, why do we go around the outside of the circuit there? We've got little scraps going on further back in the field, but we go around the outside of the circuit because it's the grippier bit of the tarmac. It's the bit that's used the least, hence it's got a bit more life in it and a bit more grip, with less rubber being put down from the hot, sticky tyres and the different test days and races that happen during the week and the year. On board now with Dunn, our onboard camera coming out of Luffield, staying off the painted curbs. Now back to the leaders again. We've got Roddison just trying to take it on the inside again, but Halliwell is still leading. So another brilliant next few minutes from these guys. Can't wait.
So as they turn their way out of Copse Corner, we have 11 more minutes of the race to go, and Paul Roddison, having lost that lead, is not staying on the back of Jonathan Halliwell, who goes again very, very, very deep into Beckett's, and he gets away with it. But I thought for a moment that was all about to unravel, but he managed to correct it all and bring it under control and take the line for the corner. But that was, I thought, about to become a bit touch and go. Things like that, though, if he can take all of that pace and control it, he will continue to build the gap over Roddison. We have now 10.5 minutes to go at Silverstone in this second MX5 Racing Championship race of the weekend. The new race leader is Jonathan Halliwell. He turns his way through Luffield. Paul Roddison is behind him, but he can't seemingly, Charlie Butler Henderson, do enough to bring down that gap, as we see there up at Beckett's a spin for the Mark 1 in the hands of Richard Smith. He was fighting for the class lead. He was in that leading battle pack, but I'm afraid he's had a rotation that drops him away. And Halliwell, the overall race leader, has just done the best lap of the race.
Oh, I should have put some money on that as well. Oh, this is brilliant. Absolutely loving all this stuff. And the 69 car we saw earlier, just getting a real proper sideways slip of Grant. And we've got another spin, a car run by the Paul Sheard team
Jim
in
Hart.
the pits, number 27, Jim Hart, as well. So even though you'd think that they would know what the conditions are like by now, they're just trying and trying and trying a little bit harder and then losing the grip.
Now let's have a look in replay at what Richard Smith did wrong.
Went way too fast, went in way too fast, started to, in theory, make the corner and turn when you should be exiting the corner, just outbraked himself really, and just a very basic error, but he'll be absolutely kicking himself, but driving himself forwards to try and gain that momentum back and fight again for class lead. He's got just over 9 minutes remaining to catch his pack that he was in earlier.
On board with Nick Dunn here as he heads down Wellington Straight. You can see the dry-ish line, or the less wet line. You can see all the standing water to one side. Charlie, talk us round.
Okay, so we're coming down the Wellington Straight, so trying to be able to see. This is where the oil we saw earlier in previous races is now gone and been washed away or just blended in with the water. We're turning in through Brooklands now, taking a late entry to cut back on the inside. Can we go up on the inside of this car in the front? No, we can't, because we want to go on the grippier side of the circuit to gain traction. You're now straightening the exit of this corner out, because it's a rear-wheel drive car. You can only accelerate full power when the front wheels are straight. As we then go tight on the inside of Woodcote, let's just have a listen. And then you can hear there, so the back end of the car is just wanting to snap away from them. past the windy pit straight and all the marshals that are taking shelter behind the pit wall as we turn through Copse Corner, missing the racing line on the right because the grippier side is on the far left. Competitors in front of us going wide on the slippery curbs. We're staying off the curbs. We're being very neat and tidy on this onboard lap of done, as now we turn into Maggots, braking in a straight line down a gear into third gear. Then we turn. We're patient on the power. We hope that one of our competitors goes off. Yes, they might do, and this is onboard stuff. And then we've got Tidmarsh on the left-hand side of us now, so you can actually hear the other car on the left-hand side as we now do a drag race, like being down at Santa Pod, a drag race down the straight there. We've got Tidmarsh on the right, Dunn on the left.
In the puddles.
In the puddles as well, yeah. And he's just got it, but are we going to use the grippier racing line on the outside and hope that Tidmarsh on the left doesn't spin into us, which he's just about to do? And he saved it as well, and there you go, another nice easy move. So our onboards car doing very, very well and slowly clawing his way back up the field. Brilliant.
That was easy, was it? That took about a lap, and he had to keep a breath in order not to get collected. That was, okay, a pass.
Well, Tidmarsh could have actually made it harder for him, but because he went sideways, that was the easy bit. It was given to him at the last minute, that's what I meant.
Okay, I'm with you all the way now. Now, Paul Rodison has somehow lost 12 seconds against Jonathan Halliwell. His last lap was a 1:35. Either he's had a spin out of our view, or he has got a problem. We need to keep an eye on the second place man, Paul Rodison. There is Jonathan Halliwell, who is now out on his own. And Paul Rodison, as I say, is a long way back, having had a spin that effectively cost him 12 seconds last time. Or I'm assuming it's a spin because 12 seconds, but then to carry on in the race does suggest it was a drama.
I think that might be him just coming onto the back straight there, the Wellington straight there, just in the distance. But yeah, he's a long way back. A good 12 seconds, as you said there. You can see the dryish line. There we go. That was our race winner from earlier before we just at the beginning of the day. And you've got the greasy line that they're on at the moment, and you can see the water, the standing water on the racing line.
That's the position. It's fifth. On the inside is Jeremy Shipley's green car, and George Grant is going to have to give way, so that's a change as they dive down into Brooklands. Jeremy Shipley does the job well on the inside there, committed to that nice and early. George Grant now looks for the outside to see whether he can go all the way around on the outside line. Can't do it, and now works his way once more up towards the timing line. We've got just under 6 minutes of the race to go, and Jonathan Halliwell, second earlier on in the day, absolutely dominant now, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, absolutely dominant, and it helps when this 55 car that we're seeing now in the famous Mazda colours that raced at Le Mans, as you said, with Johnny Herbert and the other famous drivers.
Volker Weidler, Bertrand Gachot, 1991.
There you go. I knew you'd know that, David. I just knew, at least I knew one of them.
The anorak's here for a purpose, you know.
You know, it was given to him really because now he's out in the lead, you know, and Halliwell is a good 11, just over 11 and a half seconds in the lead at the moment.
So 5 more minutes on the clock. The black car there, Jed Kelly up into third place. He's gone well, flown under the radar a bit in this. Simon Fleet fourth behind him in the blue and pink car. Fifth and sixth, we've seen the change. Jeremy Shipley green ahead of George Grant there in the grey and orange car, heading down now towards Brooklands. But Jonathan Halliwell looks as though he's going to add yet another winner's trophy to his collection. He has been one of the star drivers within the BARC run, Mazda MX5 racing for a number of years. There are championships also for MX5s run by the BRSCC. They've become a hugely popular race car because we've got a busy grid here, and this is only a fraction of the number that go racing with other organisations across the UK. Jonathan Halliwell across the timing line, and let's see whether that gap is going up or coming down over Paul Rodison. I suspect it matters not either way because the gap is still too great that it's going to take a disaster for Jonathan Halliwell. The gap has come down by over a second, but still 10.5 seconds with 4 minutes to go. Paul Rodison is out of the hunt, isn't he?
Yeah, if it was Rodison really just needs to pray that Halliwell catches the back markers that they're now starting to approach on the way through, with, you know, in the wrong places to try and get that gap down a little bit more if he can as well. As you can see some of the cars as well going sideways. Grant there going sideways on the way into Cop. So before they've even turned in, the cars are going sideways. Very tricky part of the circuit this, Maggots and Beckett's. You've got to brake while you're turning, and being in a rear-wheel drive car, when you brake, the front of the car goes down because you're sort of forcing the car down towards the front of the car, and the back goes light. So it's very, very easy to lose the car. Hence we've seen some spinners there at the Maggots and Beckett's complex. Easy for me to say. As we've got number 11, Smith as well. Smith once on the grass, wheel spinning now.
Second drama of the race. Jim Hart, second drama of the race. This time he's way off at Copse Corner.
Did it out of sympathy. They've done it out of sympathy, even though it's completely separate incidents.
He was way wide, wasn't he? Nearly had to pay to get back in. There's number 2, Jonathan Halliwell, who with 3 more minutes to go, I reckon he's going to wring 2 more laps out of this as he goes over the timing line now. And Paul Rodison ruining his mistake. Apparently it was coming out of Beckett's that he had a gyration and lost all the time. So 1 win, but could have been an even better day for Paul, but for the drama.
And do you know what I've noticed about the camera shots there a little bit? It looks a little bit sunnier. The sun looks like it's coming out as well. You can see a little glint of sun off the front left corner of those cars as they turn into Copse. I am being very optimistic, but it still is a bit sunnier and a bit drier than what it was earlier. Not on this shot, but on this side of the circuit, maybe.
It's no less windy. That grid marshal was last seen overhead Wellingborough. But it is, you're right, a little bit brighter or less dull, depending on your point of view.
There you go. It's definitely brighter.
It's tropical at Beckett's. Jed Kelly understeers his way through there in the black and white car. Behind him, Simon Fleet, not quite close enough to make a move, but he ain't far behind. And then you've got Jeremy Shipley in the green car, who's shaken off George Grant now. And behind Grant is a back marker, and then it is Nick Dunn struggling really to get in on the act. Now, Jeremy Shipley in the green colours there, he has done the fastest lap of the race last time through, which again suggests that things are drying out a little bit, and he's also closing up onto the back of Simon Fleet, who was the man fastest yesterday in qualifying.
Yeah, all that standing water's gone now really, unless, you know, because they've all been going wide, so they've been getting the water to literally get off the track and sort of spray onto the gravel and the grass on the outside of the circuit. But it is definitely getting quicker out there before it then starts getting oily and greasy. So it's a real balancing act, you know. Those when you're watching it at home and seeing, you know, why are they talking about the lap times and why are they talking about going wide and stuff, because it is critical the amount of grip they need to gain out there, because it really is treacherous, oily, greasy conditions. It's terrible.
How much of an effect on the car is the wind going to have? I know these are perhaps less susceptible than, say, a single-seater with aerodynamic aids, but surely as you turn into a corner and you get buffeted, it is going to affect things.
Yeah, of course it is, yeah, definitely, yeah. Well, there was a rumour that Alonso, wasn't there, when Alonso had his accident in the Formula 1, that it was a gust of wind that propelled his car into the gravel. But wind on any race car, apart from really a single-seater that's very, very low down, that the wind can sort of go through it, as it were, it affects all of them, so yes, it will affect it.
Never mind the frostbitten driver, although at least on a day like this where they've got to work hard, they are generating some body warmth. Jed Kelly having had a really good run there, third, and he's shaken off Simon Fleet once more, who now is busy defending from Jeremy Shipley coming down towards Brooklands. And Paul Rodison has another spin, and that's going to cost him second. Jed Kelly goes past third, Simon Fleet goes through fourth, Jeremy Shipley goes through fifth, George Grant goes through. And Nick Dunn might just gain another place out of all of this as well. He's on the outside line. Paul Rodison there to the right of us as they come through Luffield. But the man that won earlier on in the day has had an absolute mare in race 2.
Yeah, he really seems to be struggling, you know. And it's pretty much the same conditions as what we've seen earlier. So, yeah, wipers on, yeah. So, as a driver, I think he was just trying to get away from Luffield, get the gear change before he flicked his wipers on. Because the last thing you want them doing is being on all the time, because then they get even greasier. So you only need them really when you get a shower of water in the front of them, as we've seen. But yeah, our previous race winner, what a shame, what a disastrous race for him.
What a difference a few hours can make as well. Have a look at this, thinking of a difference as well. Look at the windscreen now for Nick Dunn compared to lap 1. Much less water being thrown at him.
Yes, and still that positive bit of sunshine. And we've got Halliwell there, sorry, not Halliwell, Rodison on the left-hand side there going wide, easily cleaning up from one of the older shape cars on the right-hand side that we've just eaten up and just passed and gone. And great stuff from our onboard there. Brilliant.
That was Tom Hotchkiss going a lap down, but this is the race leader, Jonathan Halliwell, who is on target for victory. In the first race, Paul Rodison was the winner by 3.3 seconds, but in this, Jonathan Halliwell, having made that move, got himself into the lead and has then been able to build a very healthy advantage. So round 2 of the MX5 Racing Championship here at Silverstone. A win for Jonathan Halliwell. Over the timing line, checkered flag falls, Halliwell victorious, and in the end, it is going to be by a monster margin. Jed Kelly is the man that should be on for second place. He comes towards the line now, 8 seconds back. Simon Fleet takes third, Jeremy Shipley fourth, and with the fastest lap of the race. And fifth is George Grant. And Paul Rodison, the winner of race 1, is only 6th in race 2, and in fairness, given how close Nick Dunn got to relieving him of that place, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse, but he will. Rodderson will be absolutely gutted. You know, 1 win and then 2 spins, and a 6th is a bit of a sort of a head-scratching, puzzling weekend, really. But started good, but didn't end good.
Chris Webster, meantime, is going to be able to celebrate 2 out of 2 because this will be a second-class win. This is the winner of the Mark 1 class, the original 1600 MX5, when Mazda backed the Mazda Championship as a manufacturer-supported series when they introduced it in 1990. And 1991, Patrick Watts, Mark Lemmer among the early champions. The cars date back to that era. And Chris Webster comes across the timing line. He acknowledges the checkered flag, and that is William Bowles, who takes the flag and goes off at very high speed. And that is a big old impact into the Armco. He was involved in the wars in race 1. He's involved in the wars after race 2, in a sense. He'd taken the checkered flag and then just lost traction, and the car flings him sideways left off the road and into the Armco, and that was a big hit.
It was a big hit, yeah. It seemed like a throttle or something. I don't know why, but he seemed to be keep. Once you go on the wet grass, the momentum just keeps going, and the grass is slipperier than the circuit, so you seem to gain speed. But there was a bit of movement. Let's hope he's going to be okay.
Let's just confirm the way the top 6 came across the line. Jonathan Halliwell, the race winner, from Jed Kelly 8 seconds back, and Simon Fleet 3rd. Jeremy Shipley 4th, and the man that got the fastest lap of the race ahead of George Grant. And race 1 winner, race 2 spinner, Paul Rodison, comes home in 6th place. We'll hear from Jonathan Halliwell about a very busy race when we're back at Silverstone after the break.
Welcome back to Silverstone, and it's time for the presentation. Magnus, if you could do the honours, please. Thank you very much. Jonathan Halliwell receiving the honours for that brilliant win. Great stuff. We'll start with the top dog, John. Come on in here. So, great race for you. Incredible victory, but it also should be pointed out that you also run the championship.
Yes, but I still have to try and drive with the other guys, and I'm driving with some very, very good drivers.
So they're not giving you extra room. They're not going, oh, that's the boss. Hang on, we'll just ease off.
I can assure you, most definitely not. You know, these guys, they're cracking drivers, very clean, and you know, to be fair to me, I think I've just had a lucky break today because it's very wet. I hate racing in the wet, but everything came together. Paul Rodison. I think he gifted me first in the end because I was just putting pressure on him, and I think I could just drive out the corners a little bit quicker. Managed to get past him, and then he span it. And then obviously these guys behind, I think they were snapping at my heels as well. So, but no, it was good, very good race. I'm very, very happy with the result. Yeah, I think the smile says it all.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll move on to the others in just a second, but I noticed that you were looking with some caution at your car that came through, the one you own, that came through just now and hit the bollards. The driver's fine, but I can see you've got one eye on how the car's looking. Is it okay?
Yeah. Well, we run a few cars, and there's a lad hiring a car called Will Bowles, and he's obviously taken the checkered flag, and he's hit the wall.
You'll be having a word later.
I'm a bit disappointed actually, but I'm a bit upset as well. But hey ho.
All right. Well, thanks ever so much. Let's move on down. 2nd place, and it looked like there was a real tussle between you guys. Did you enjoy that one?
Oh, it was fantastic. First time in the wet at Silverstone, and yeah, racing alongside Simon. Absolutely great. Toe to toe all the way through. Jonathan managed to get away. We were catching Paul Rodison, putting a bit of trouble. Paul spun, I think, 2nd to last lap. I went up the left, Simon went up the right, both missing Paul by inches.
It's almost like it was choreographed.
I was happy with the choreograph. Yes, yeah. Paul, you can do that pirouette anytime.
Brilliant. But you've enjoyed your weekend.
It's fantastic. Great day at Silverstone, great track.
Fantastic. Congratulations to you. What's so special about these Mazdas? Because people just love racing them.
Well, in the dry, they've got so much grip, and around the corners, they beat an awful lot of the faster supercars. In the wet, however, it's touch the throttle, and you're about 80% power, and the back end just swings out. So It's very tricky in the wet, and that's my nemesis. That's the bit I hate. Jed and I were here Friday testing in the dry. We were neck and neck. There was about 0.2 of a second between us. We were following each other around for a good half an hour. So brilliant today, obviously, for second and third. Couldn't get past him. He's one of my mates. We'll be having words over a beer later.
Well, it's fair to say that the track has had something of a wash today, but what the viewers may not realise is just how windy it is out there. Is that making a difference on the track?
Yeah, absolutely. If you turn into a corner and it's nearly all right-handers here and the wind's howling from the left, it does push you out. In addition to that, there was an oil slick at the first corner, which made it very, very tricky.
So there's that beautiful fusion of a wet track, an oil slick, a nasty corner and wind.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of other drivers to get past.
Of course, and it's in a race.
Yeah, absolutely. But brilliant fun. We're all safe. We're all happy. We're going to go home with smiles and a few beers down the neck. So
terrific, and there's a great spirit amongst you all as well. So it's really good to see.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Thank you very much,
us, guys. Well done. Glad you had such a good weekend. I think it's high time that we got some highlights. So David, it's back to you.
Let's look back then on the second MX5 Racing Championship race of the weekend. The brave marshals on the grid managed to stop everybody in the right place, and the cars were released on a wet road with some very grey clouds overhead. The first casualty was Andy Bailey. He was third at Luffield. He ran off the road and into the gravel, fought back and got 9th place at Flagfall. Jim Hart had a couple of dramas. The first one, though, was a slide, and that opened the door for Nick Dunn to get up the inside. Paul Rodison led, but Jonathan Halliwell closed and attacked and attacked and attacked. And finally, it all came good round the outside where he found a bit of extra traction going through Beckett's, and Halliwell hit the front. Jim Hart got it wrong up at Luffield and slithered his way onto the grass. He was able to rejoin, albeit a long way down the order. In the end, he got 10th place on his recovery. Matthew Tidmarsh had a big old slide as well, going through his lead, lost time with a spin up at Beckett's and had another one at Brooklands, and that put him in the end in 6th position. Could have been worse, but it could have been so much better for him. In the end, Jonathan Halliwell came through to score victory. The winning margin was 8 seconds. And this goes to show